Larry, as you know, is giving his testimony this evening, and he wanted me to read this section of Jeremiah because it was something that was very special to him. So it's Jeremiah 29. You probably know some of this, verses 11 to 14. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call upon me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity. I will gather you from all the nations and places where I have banished you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back to the place from which I carried you into exile. Larry.
Good evening, everybody. Is that too loud, or is that okay? Thank you for inviting me. Well, this is the first of me. Not giving the testimony, but the first in front of a bunch of ladies. No men in sight, apart from Ed, of course. Please be gentle with me, okay? Right, yeah, Jeremiah 29, 11 to 14. Those words have become very, very important to me, certainly over the latter period of my life. And as my story unfolds, it will be explained to you. So, where does it all begin? Rather than talk about the Larry that you see in front of you now, I need to go back and tell you about the Larry before this Larry. Okay, so I'll tell you a bit of a background of me and my growing up years, etc. I was born in a town called Ashton-under-Lyne. I don't know whether anybody's heard of it. It's about 7 miles south of Manchester, and it was a typical cotton mill town with the old mills there by the side of the river, Victorian mills. We weren't particularly well-off family. I was one of 4 children. I was the third. I had an older brother, an older sister, then me, and then a younger brother. And we didn't have much money at all. Clothes were hand-me-downs. I got a lot of my older brother's ones. Now he was 10 years older than me, so you can imagine the state of some of my clothes, can't you? But we got through life and we always had a hot meal on the table. Mum and Dad scrimped and scraped, and they always provided a week away in Butlins or Pontins or something like that every year. So we managed in life, we got through okay. And in my school years, I was always quite intelligent at school, but very, very lazy. I didn't achieve much. I finished up with 2 O-levels, English and Geography. And my school reports always used to say the same: Larry is a really nice guy, a really nice boy, but he's so lazy at school. Yeah, that was me. Anyway, I didn't come out of school with very much, as I tell you. So what did I do then? Well, I finished up initially. My first job was working for the income tax people in the Inland Revenue as a trainee tax officer. And I was 3 weeks short of my 16th birthday when I left school, and I walked straight into this job. And it was looking after the income tax affairs for the London Evening Standard. Anybody remember that old paper? Yeah, the London Evening Standard. Well, they were looked after in Manchester 18 District Tax Office, which is where I was employed. But it was boring. Oh boy, was that boring work. So I then left that job pretty quickly I moved on from job to job. I worked at James Robertson's Jam Works at one stage. In the office there, I finished up in a builder's merchants, and that wasn't too bad. Anyway, weekends we used to go out and visit the clubs, and there'd always be an act of some description on. Because those days, every street corner, instead of having a corner shop on it, had a club of some description. There would be a British Legion or a Conservative club, Labour club, etc., etc. So there was no shortage of clubs in the north of England. I'd always sung at school. I was always in the school productions, and I was always one that always got the lead part. The boy who pushed his way to the front, like really pushy guy. And my elder brother said to me one night, we'd been to a club, and he said, but it was only by night. Little pun there, but never mind. Not very punny, was it? Yeah, Larry Day, and I was well known. So I finished up getting more and more bookings that were worth more money as well, which was great. And I finished up performing on the same bill as a few well-known people. Tony Christie was one of them. Didn't like me because I sang a lot of the same sort of numbers as him. And he came up to me one night, and when I was on the same bill as him, I was obviously supporting him, not the other way around. And he told me to remember who the star was. Now, I don't wish any ill for Tony, because I know he's been very ill himself recently, hasn't he? But I was also on the same bill as Freddie Starr in a place called Batley Variety Club. Don't know if anybody's heard of that one. Yeah, Batley Variety Club. And Freddie Starr was a strange boy. Very, very strange boy. He was a bit of a dual personality, he was, Freddie. He would, the particular night I saw him, they built a scaffold because at the side of the stage, what they used to do, he used to come on the stage on the end of a rope, because Tarzan, you see. So he used to jump off his scaffold and swing onto the stage. And but I looked at him, and before his name was called, he was heading his hands. He was muttering into himself. Oh, no. And they announced him Freddie Starr, and he switched, just like that. Became a different personality. He was Freddie Starr at the stage. And he swung on his rope and got on with his act. So I appeared on the same bill as him. I met a few really nice people as well. One of them who was very special, and I became very, very friendly with her, was Kathy Staff. Know her, Batty? Yeah, and she used to do a lot of charity work. So she asked me to do a few charity concerts for her. So I did quite a few of those for her as well. And I met quite a lot of the cast of Last of the Summer Wine. Peter Sallis, Bill Owen, and the likes. Yeah. So happy days, happy days. Anyway, there was always something in me that was not fulfilled. I might have been enjoying myself at the weekends, but there was always something missing in my life, and I was searching. And it was like I couldn't see the end of a tunnel here. That I knew there was something at the end of that tunnel, but I didn't know what it was at the time. I was searching. No, nothing happened. I thought, well, I wondered, I need to change direction and look at a career or some description rather than the work that I'm doing. So I walked down the high street, the local high street one day. This was back in 1975 it was. And I passed a careers office, and it was an RAF careers office. And a big cutout, bigger than me, of an RAF guy in uniform with a couple of spanners in his hand. And I thought, That looks interesting. I walked in, walked out. 6 weeks later, after passing an aptitude test, I found myself on a train to RAF Swinderby, and getting off at the other end and being told I was a horrible so-and-so, get in line there, stand to attention, and move off with the rest of these guys. Okay, so I was in the RAF. That was the start of a 26-year career. Yeah, and I must admit, generally, I had a wonderful, wonderful time. It was a great career. I'd really encourage anybody, like yourselves here, who've got young fellas, maybe children or grandchildren, who are thinking of what to do next, is join up. Join the military. I actually did really well as well. When I joined up, I always aspired to be a chief technician, chief engineer. And that was my ultimate game. So I progressed through the ranks quite steadily. And within 15 years, I think it was, I made chief technician, and that was the proudest moment at that point in my life. I'd got there, I'd achieved it. During my career, I managed to visit lots and lots of different countries. Germany, I had 2 tours there, 3 tours, amounting to 8 years. I travelled all the United States. I saw 20 odd of the United States in my time in the RAF, including Alaska. I was on 2 fighter squadrons with a Harrier aircraft and the Tornado aircraft. I was in charge of guys there working on those. Managed to get a backseat ride in both of those aircraft, in the Harrier in Germany, with the short takeoff and vertical landing, hover landing. This was wonderful, as you can imagine. And I also got a backseat ride in a Tornado aircraft in Alaska, which was quite an experience. We were on detachment out in Alaska, and I managed to get a backseat ride. And that was great because the pilot said to me, "You have control now." What? You've got control? I was a sergeant then. You've got control? Sarge. Okay, fine. Right, so there I am. I'm having a play in the sky with this. Wonderful. Flying around Mount McKinley at 20,000 feet. Oh, great it was. Absolutely wonderful. Wouldn't let me land for some reason, but never mind. But anyway, that was the good part of the career. However, things started going sour, and I was posted to RAF St Athan, just down the road here, back in 93, I think it was, something like that, 92, 93. And I was posted onto a section called Aircraft Transport and Salvage Flight, which was affectionately known as crash and smash. Okay. Now what we used to do was, our prime role was, have you ever been down the motorway and you've seen a big aircraft on the back of a long low loader, taking up 2 lanes? Well, that was me. Not me driving, but me in charge of it. Okay. That was the main task, but every few weeks, when it was our turn, because as a chief, you'd have a group of guys who you'd be in charge of, and every few weeks you do a rotation of teams for being on crash recovery, in case an aircraft crashed anywhere. And it was aircraft crashed anywhere, not just in the UK, but anywhere in the world. But the proviso was that these aircraft had to be UK registered, and whether they were civilian or military didn't really matter. It was where they were registered in the UK. So that was what I did. I saw a couple of minor crashes where I went out and picked up bits of small aircraft. But then one day in 1995 was something that was going to change my life happened just outside of Harrogate. And it was a little place called Keswick. I don't know if anybody knows that region. An aircraft took off from Leeds Bradford Airport on its way to Dublin. And sorry, every time I tell this bit, I get a little lump there, so you have to bear with me, okay? Yeah, it was on its way to Dublin Airport. He got up in the sky and immediately lost control of all his flying instruments. And he was in low cloud at 600 feet, this guy. He didn't know where he was, whether he was flying straight and level or up in the air like that, or pointing downwards. Automatic reaction was to pull up. Now, as he did that, he pulled up and the G-forces folded the wings in. Now, it was a twin prop aircraft, this, and there were 12 people inside it. So you can imagine the carnage, can't you, of what happened. And of course it crashed straight down from 600 feet. Within a matter of hours, myself and my team were on the scene. And what would happen there, because we had control of a crash site, once the ambulance had been in and looked for survivors, etc., and the firemen had put any fires out, the site would become mine. So I had police working with me during a 3-week period while we were doing the recovery, doing hands and knees searches, picking up any bits and banging them and things like that. And of course it wasn't just, unfortunately it wasn't just mechanical pieces that we were finding, you can imagine. So, at the time, what we used to do in those days, it was all bravado in the forces, you know. If you see a trauma, you deal with it over a beer in the bar afterwards. That was the attitude, that was the way of doing it. That was the man's way of dealing with something, you know. But it wasn't the right way, and I was to learn that at a later date. Some years later, a couple of years later, my behaviour started really changing. I'd been having flashbacks and intrusive thoughts, and the flashbacks were like I was there on the scene. I was looking down on what I had been there doing, almost, picking pieces up. There's one particular scene that I had to put the stewardess, who was a young lady, into a body bag, along with a couple of the guys there as well. We had to roll her over and put her in, and she looked absolutely perfect. Yeah, but her injuries were pretty severe, so she couldn't have survived. A couple of years, as I say, later, my behaviour started decreasing badly. I was drinking more and more and more, and I was trying to mask the pain of what I'd been through. But that was the wrong way to do it, as I now know. The upshot was that I finished up being diagnosed with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. Finished up in and out of military hospital a couple of times. Behaviour got so uncontrollable that my then wife and my family just didn't want anything to do with me completely at all. So I came out in 2001. I came out of the RAF in 2001 after 26 years. And initially, I managed to secure a franchise with the money that I got from my annuity with the RAF in doing plumbing and heat and tiling. So I did that for a couple of years, but it just wasn't working because I'd earned money and I spent it on drink. And it just got worse and worse and worse. I mean, the drink started devouring me. And I couldn't function at all. But God had a plan. And as that says in there, he knew the plans that he had for me. At times I thought, what is happening to me? Why is this man who used to be in charge of all these men and was well respected and well liked, why was he keep behaving like I was behaving then? Things got that bad that I lost everything. I lost the business that I had. I lost where I was living. I finished up eventually, literally on the street. I had nowhere else to go. And this is a chief technician who'd finished up in this position on the street. What a place to be. What a position to find myself in. I remember one occasion I was in Barry, and there was this lady came up to me. I was under a tree in Barry. I can't remember exactly where it was. And she said to me, "Are you all right, love?" And she took me for a cup of tea. And I never know that lady's name. I haven't got a clue what she was called. I'm convinced she was a Christian, but she took me for the cup of tea. And it was her that, I'm sure it was her. A lot of time at that period is a little hazy because of the alcohol. But I'm sure this lady got me into a hostel in Newport. So I finished up in a hostel for a couple of days. I actually, at one stage, because I had got no money, I finished up selling the Big Issue. Yeah? Now, I'm not ashamed to say all this. That was me in those days. I finished up selling the Big Issue. But the only reason I was selling the Big Issue was to get more money so I could buy some more drink. I mean, drink was just completely in control of my life. And I don't mind admitting it now. Completely in control. At times I move about, and I finished up migrating back to this area because that's the plan, one of the plans that the Lord had for me was to come back here. And the long and short of it is that I finished in Porthcawl. I actually finished a couple of nights I spent in the back of a well-known church not too far away from here, sleeping in the back there because I had nowhere on the cupboard to go else. And the people were wonderful with me, absolutely wonderful with me. The Woolwich Clifford used to come and see me every morning and bring me a couple of bacon butties and a flask of tea And they were wonderful to me. Absolutely wonderful. And then the Woolwich Clifford actually managed to get me in touch with a housing association via a social worker that was called in to help me. And there was a guy called Rob James, Julie's brother, and he's a wonderful guy, absolutely wonderful guy. And he helped me a lot, Rob did. Forever grateful to him. I finished up in a little flat opposite the Princess of Wales Hospital. Now, I don't know whether you know that area or not. There's a block of flats there, I think it's called Pendray House. You might have seen it. I finished up in one of those. Flat number 4, I'll never forget it. I walked in this flat, and I didn't have anything. There was nothing there at all. I didn't even have a bed, nothing to lay my head on. And somebody said to me, why don't you go and see these people? And give me the phone number and address of a place in Pyle. And it was a church-run organisation that provided for people like myself who didn't have anything with help with furniture and such. And it was a place run by Bethlehem Church Life Centre in Kevin Cribbler there. And it was called Community Connections. So I finished up getting in touch with them, and they helped me. A nice guy called Knowle Thomas helped me, and the pastor there, Mike, as well. They helped me with getting some furniture and bedding and all sorts of things that I needed to just get comfortable, which was great. Then Mel said to me, why don't you come to church one time? I said, yeah, why not? He said, you know, you might enjoy coming to church. I said, yeah, okay, why not? Just going to tell you something here about that before I go into Bethlehem Church Life Centre. I actually started going to church while I was there at the hospital. A place called Litchard Mission? Litchard Mission, yeah. I went to Litchard Mission, and then that is where I actually gave my heart to the Lord. Yeah. There was a pastor there called Malcolm, and he spent some time with me, and he was very good with me as well. Anyway, moving on, I finished up going to church at Bethlehem Church Life Centre. In those days, BCLC as it was known, was a really thriving church. I mean, they'd have a couple of hundred people there on a Sunday. Really thriving. So I got talking to one of the youngish fellas there, and I said, do you know anybody who can give me a lift to Porthcawl? Because I was going to meet a friend in Porthcawl. And he said, yeah, he says, I'll ask the lady that gave me a lift. I said, okay. So, turns out, it was a young lady called Carol. So that's how I met Carol. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I said to Carol, can you drop me off in Porthcawl, please? She said, well, I actually live in there. I said, I live down in West Bay. I said, okay, thanks very much. So she dropped me in West Bay, and I said to her, that was really, really nice of you. I said, I'll definitely come back to church again. And, yeah. I was going to say, and then the rest is history, but no. I said, I'll definitely come back to church again. And I said, if there's anything I can do to help you, so I'm quite handy with my hands, you know. Obviously I've been planner in Thailand for a while. I said, just let me know. And she said, well, funny enough, she says, I've got a mirror that needs hanging up. I said, I'll hang that mirror up for you. She said, yeah, because the last one got broken, because the carpet man came in and knocked it off the wall. Okay. That old chestnut, yeah, I know. So I said, okay, no problem, I'll do that for you. So Carol gets back in the car, drives off. First thing is, she goes to Knowle and buys a mirror. Only joking. Only joking. She really did have a replacement mirror. Okay. Anyway, during all this is going on that I've explained to you now, but I was still drinking like a fish. In fact, like a half a dozen fish. Yeah, I was that bad. And I couldn't function. My day was get up in the morning, go into Porthcawl, find a pub. I mean, you can find a pub in Porthcawl 9 o'clock in the morning, no problem. And you can still have a drink at 1 o'clock in the morning, you know where to, 1 at night, you know, if you know where to go. So it's always readily available. But I had my days mapped out, and it was so boring. And people used to say about me, they said, oh, he's okay, he just comes in the Rafa Club or wherever, and he's got his paper there, he just sits in the corner and never speaks to anybody, he just reads his paper. Because that was me, I was that into it, and I was that wrapped up in myself. I didn't want to know anybody else, I didn't just speak to anybody else. Anyway, I started going to the church at BCLC there. And as I say, I was still drinking there. I tried getting up, I tried a couple of organisations to help me as well. One was Combat Stress. I don't know if you've heard of that organisation. It does very similar work to the British Legion, but on a smaller scale. And they did some work with me. I went and stayed at a residential place that they got for a couple of weeks spells, where they do in-house therapy, etc. And I got on quite well with them there. Combat Stress were actually featured in 2012 by the BBC, the One Show, and they wanted people to be interviewed. So I got volunteered to be one of the interviewees, and the guy who was the interviewer was Larry Knowles. So you had two Larrys together in one interview. So that was on One Show, I think it was 2012. I don't know whether it's still available via a YouTube link or anything like that, but it was back in those days anyway. But there again, time goes on, and the more time went on, the more I was still drinking. My health was deteriorating really badly. I was eating, I mean, I'm a slim guy, as you can see, but I was skin and bones, literally. I mean, it was shocking. Because I wasn't eating, I was just drinking. Nothing else in my life at that time. But it got to the stage where I finished up being violently sick one night. I presumed it was just fluid coming out of me, but it turned out that it wasn't. I'd had a stomach bleed overnight, and I'd actually been sick with what was in my stomach at the time. Finished up in POW there for a couple of days, and then back out again. I started drinking again. Ridiculous. looking back, absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, to cut a long story short, because we've been going on a little bit now, in 2013, it got to the stage where I'd tried everything. I'd actually tried a couple of times to give it up myself, and I couldn't. And I remember, clear as to this day, exactly what I did. I got on my knees, and I prayed. And I prayed to the Lord, and I said, Lord, I can't do this anymore, please, Lord. I can't do it on my own. Will you please help me? I've sinned. I've sinned against heaven and you. Please help me, Lord. And as I prayed that prayer, to the split second, I felt this load come off my shoulders. This heavy load lifted off my shoulders. And the desire and the urge to drink had been taken away from me. And don't get me wrong, over the years, Satan has had a nibble now and again, but he's never won, because that urge and that need has been taken away completely. Yeah, I thank the Lord for that. He didn't know the plans that he had for me. Plans to prosper me and not to harm me, to give me a hope and a future. He's still looking after me now. He's still with me. All the time. I'm here now. I know he's with me now. I know he's here now. He's in me. Yeah? He's all around me. He's leading me. He's watching over me. He carries me on the eagle's wings. He is my Lord. I love him. I thank you. I thank you that I'm with the Lord doing that for me. In 2014, I could marry that beautiful lady over there. Yeah? Because it was never going to happen otherwise. Yeah? But because of the work that he's done in me, he sees the man now that he wants me to be. Not the man that I was before, but the man that I am now. Thank you for listening, everybody.